Thank you, students, for being here for another interview for Contemporary World Religions, REL 2036. And it is fortunate for us to have here tonight Mohamed Darsani. He is the director for the Islamic Center for Peace in Fort Myers. He's also been a guest and a lecturer and at FGCU on a number of occasions in a number of classrooms. And I have the fortune of getting to know him a number of years ago through the United Campus Ministries at FGCU. So thank you for being here in this time to share a bit about your faith, your background, Mohamed, and God's peace be with you.
Thank you.
And let's kind of just share a little about yourself, how long you've been here in Fort Myers, which is a lot longer than me.
Sure.
And then a bit about your background, and then we can start getting into the basics of Islam.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me.
Oh, of course.
And may God bless you and bless your effort and bless every student who's watching this. And also, we pray that this difficult time will pass soon so we can have physical meetings soon.
Yeah.
Now, about myself a little bit before we start. I am originally from Damascus, Syria. I came to the United States back in 1982. My academic background is in engineering.
I remember that.
Yes.
Yeah. What kind of engineering?
I started in civil engineering, then I switched to computer science and system engineering.
Oh, wow.
And graduated from Louisiana Tech University.
In Ruston?
In Ruston, Louisiana. You know Ruston?
The middle of nowhere, in my opinion.
Beautiful place, beautiful people. I really miss that place.
Louisiana, though, it's a different world. It's a different part of the United States.
It is.
I lived in Baton Rouge.
It really is. The culture and the people and the climate and everything, yes.
I was in Baton Rouge.
But I enjoyed my time. Thank God I did.
Good.
And I got married in Louisiana, actually. My first marriage was there. All my kids were born there.
Wow.
With the exception of the last one. I moved to Florida in 1991, actually in January 1991, and I've been here since. And I saw the changes and the developments in the area firsthand.
It's incredible how much growth has happened in this area.
Unbelievable. Just like I mentioned to you, this is where we are sitting right now.
This was a cow pasture, probably.
It was wood, nothing but wood, and there was a radio station right behind you.
Wow.
And a little road leads to it on the other side of the building. Wow. That's what it was.
Wow, great.
So
you grew up within Islam, I believe.
I grew up as a Muslim. As I said, I came here in 1982. I was 25 years old. At the age of 18, I was ordained as, that was also my first year of college at the civil engineering school in Damascus. I was ordained as a preacher.
Okay.
So
is an imam different than what you were ordained as, or are you considered an imam, or what is imam?
Okay, that's a good place to start.
Okay.
This terminology.
Yes.
We don't have a preacher.
You don't have a professional.
We don't have professional clergy class. Although, unfortunately, it is happening now. We're following the steps of other people, unfortunately. There is no clergy class in Islam. The word preacher can be translated to public speaker in religious issues.
But it's different than the person who would call out for prayer from the minbar.
Correct. The one who calls is the prayer caller, the mu'adhin.
Can you say that again?
Mu'adhin. He's the prayer caller.
Okay.
All he does, he calls for the
out,
prayer.
and he needs to do a good job of chanting. And
well,
you hope, right?
Yes, we hope so. But this is not a requirement.
Okay.
And a preacher is somebody who stands up during the congregational prayers of Jumu'ah, or to give the sermon, somebody who gives sermons, or gives speeches
Okay.
of religious, nature to the public. The imam in the religious term is for what we call here, or is called in Christianity, a pastor.
A pastor.
A pastor of a church. The
Kind of
imam
taking
of the
care
mosque.
of the
He takes
souls and the welfare of the individuals.
Correct.
Now, as far as like theology, like teaching at not just an Islamic university, let's say, but madras or
Madrasa, it's called madrasa, school.
a
Madrasa
school. And
literally
so,
means school.
do you have, are people in Islam trained to become not just imams, but also trained to become theologians so that they have a little more, so it's a matter of popularity and influence then, because it's not a hierarchy, or do you understand what I mean?
There is no hierarchy.
Correct.
That's the beauty about it. Once you finish your studies, whether in a school, and believe it or not, the best of scholars are those who graduated from studying under scholars, not in universities or schools.
But through a non-traditional university, but
Correct.
through just others who really studied the Quran and the Hadith and others.
That's correct. And they get in depth, and that scholarship does not require just receiving information, digesting the information, and being tested. It's also a requirement to accompany your teacher for years.
So you basically are an apprentice.
Exactly.
And so
apprentice system.
You better choose the right person to
And this is how I was.
Right.
And that's how I became a preacher.
Okay. But you make the wrong choice, and so basically someone who wants to become an apprentice can look around for which person they think will be the type of person that will follow
They want to follow, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And that's how it is. Or you can go to a school, religious study school, or you can go to a university and get a degree. And the largest university in the world, literally, is the University of Al-Azhar in Egypt, where they have probably 700,000 students.
Wow.
Okay? All disciplines.
Not
From
in-
medicine all
right.
the way to...
Not on one campus, probably.
No, all over Egypt. But I came from Damascus University when I came here, where we had a campus who had 100,000 students.
Wow.
Yes.
Very large.
Yes.
Great. So that's a little background and some information. So when we talk about the Islamic faith, some of the basics, I put up here a couple of them. And it's not all inclusive, but it's a jumping point, and you can jump off in all different ways. But one of the distinctives that I've seen, especially from the Abrahamic tradition, there is a divine monotheism in all three Abrahamic faiths. But I think in Islam, it's a little more stringent, maybe, or defined. Would you say? Because
you're correct.
Because in Christianity we have, which Mohamed did not believe is correct, the doctrine of the Trinity, that there's a community of oneness, three persons, one God, not three gods, but it's impossible.
The concept of Trinity is very, very strange to the Islamic.
Correct. Well, it's a difficult one. But Tawheed, is that
Tawheed.
right? Yeah.
Tawheed.
Wow.
Monotheism, basically. That's exactly the literal
The
translation.
indivisible oneness of God.
Uniqueness,
Uniqueness, separateness.
singularity.
There is nothing greater, nothing more, nothing.
Absolutely.
And there is no way to piecemeal or
Correct.
look at just. Is that correct?
That's the core of Islam.
Okay.
That's what the whole concept of Islam.
Which was, at the time Muhammad, there was many, at the time Muhammad had his revelation and before, in his early childhood, there was a lot of polytheistic or tribal deities and rivalries that he then united together.
Correct.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Let me start first.
Yeah, go ahead.
Given the meaning of the word Islam. And what
Yes,
Islam
what does
is.
Islam mean?
Unfortunately, people think there are three monotheistic religions. There is one monotheistic religion, and it is called Islam. Then we have three different traditions: Judaism, Christianity, then Islam came. But the whole doctrines of all these religions revolves around one concept. And then that one concept is the first commandment.
Which is, you shall have no other gods
Before.
before me.
Exactly. And it is in Islam, it is in Christianity, and it is in Judaism. The oneness of God is the core that combines all of this. Abraham was the first Muslim. God calls it the religion of Islam, but yes, there was the Jewish faith and their laws, there was the Christian faith and their laws, and then the Islamic faith and the Islamic laws. We'll explain that eventually if we get time.
So Islam means
Islam means the
surrender, peaceful surrender to God.
surrender willingly.
Willing surrender.
You can surrender with a gun.
Well,
with
that's
heaven.
not, yeah.
That's not what
That's
God
not
wants.
surrender.
Willingly, total freedom
Or submission
to submit to God. That's Islam.
to say God's will be done, not mine.
So,
Okay.
according to that definition, Abraham was a Muslim, Moses was a Muslim, Jesus was a Muslim, Mohamed was a Muslim. You are a Muslim and I'm a Muslim if we submit to the will of God.
So that there is, in Islam, God is unapproachable in one sense, I guess, or because He is holy and above, there's no images of Him, and
Absolutely.
so the way, if you want to say ways, like in the tradition of, if you look through the Hebrew scriptures, there are references to God's presence being on earth
Correct.
in either the angel of the Lord or in other semi-forms, like the cloud of pillar and fire, and He speaks, etc. But in Islam, He only speaks through angels, like the angel who came to Mohammed through his prophet then, or through the Quran, but not like through...
The only person that's one of the Islamic belief and is based on the Quran, the only human being ever heard God, talk to God directly is Moses. That's
okay.
it. And
But usually then this understanding that
God is approachable. However, He's not like
anything else, you
creation.
can't,
Anything you can imagine, anything you can
Right.
make, anything
So-
you can draw is not a
so
representation
in a
of God.
sense, there has been a belief in angels as the mediators,
Correct.
because you can't really approach God.
The angels carried the messages from God to all of His prophets and messengers,
And-
with the exception Jesus Christ.
Okay.
Okay, He was the exception.
In what sense is He the exception?
The Word of God was built in.
Oh,
So He came through this miraculous birth, equipped. He didn't
So-
need an angel to come and aid him. at
so
all.
Islam believes He had a virgin birth as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, and that Jesus had a prophetic and the Word of God with Him.
With Him already, He doesn't need an angel
Uniquely
to be
compared to other
different from
human
all the
beings.
others.
So that kind of leads to the prophets in the scriptures. Islam believes the same prophets from Adam through all of the Hebrew scriptures through
Correct.
Jesus, and then Muhammad being the seal of the prophets.
In the Quran, 25 prophets and messengers were mentioned. There is a difference between a prophet and a
And a
messenger.
message. What's the difference? I'm learning a lot here too.
Yes, a messenger is somebody who receives a message with commandments or laws in it.
Okay.
The prophet receives messages from God, but he does not have what we call the message, the duty of coming up with the new things. He is there to, like
Just
the prophets of
Basically,
Judaism.
to reiterate
Exactly.
what God said and not
to
add to it
reinforce
or take it away.
Exactly. So every messenger is a prophet. Not every prophet is a messenger.
Okay.
Okay. Moses was a messenger. Abraham, let's start from now. The first
Okay.
messenger and prophet.
Is Noah not Adam?
Now,
Okay, Noah.
then comes Abraham.
Abraham?
After Abraham comes Moses.
Okay,
After Moses comes Jesus. After Jesus came Mohammed.
okay,
All of these people
But
came with messages, books
okay.
from God.
So they were messengers,
They were messengers.
but there are other prophets.
And there are
like
other prophets.
Hosea,
Zechariah,
Isaiah,
John,
John.
Isaac, Ishmael,
okay, okay,
Jacob,
okay.
all those prophets. And those messengers carried a new message. And every message came with something new from the previous one. So what's in Islam confirms everything Jesus came with. Jesus came to fulfill the law, to confirm the law. And he had the power also or the authority to modify it.
Okay.
Same thing with Abraham, same thing with Noah.
So, Mohammed is the seal of the prophets.
The seal of prophets. and
Islam
messengers.
expects no future prophets.
That's it.
There might
However,
be other messengers, but no future
prophets or messengers.
No prophets,
That's
no
the-
messengers.
In order to be a messenger, you have to be a prophet.
Okay,
So
okay.
it is done.
So that's why I had interviewed someone who is from the Baha'i faith,
Yes.
which is problematic in the sense that the Bab and the Baha'u'llah
Baha'u'llah.
came
And
1,000
he is
years,
a prophet.
right, and came 1,000 years after Muhammad and claims to be a prophet. And so in Iran, where this started, it was considered heretical and
Still
correct.
until today, it's
Correct.
considered
Okay.
as a heresy.
So that kind of helps understand the
However, the Quran says there were many prophets, that's before Muhammad's time,
right.
all the way back to Adam's time. Many prophets and messengers who were not mentioned in the scriptures. And the Quran clearly says there was no land or a tribe or a people
Mhm.
on earth who were left without a messenger.
Okay. Final judgment, which I believe there are some similarities between the Abrahamic faiths, that life has a beginning, a middle, and an end goal, and that there will be a day of judgment.
Correct.
And there's differences maybe in interpretation of what are the criterias of judgment, let's say, and what happens afterwards. But in Islam, it is a very strong sense of your life. There will be a day that you will stand judged before Allah.
Correct.
Correct. Can you explain that a little more?
Certainly, yes. We believe in the day of judgment, which is basically right after the end of the world. The world as we know it, the whole universe as we know it now, and even science confirms that, is going to come to an end.
Okay, so for someone who dies now, they don't really face judgment until the last
Until
day.
they'll
So-
die, they'll,
So at that point, let's say, someone dies today and the world lasts another,
billion years.
well,
Okay.
1,000 years, let's say.
Okay.
Some days I'm thinking it's not going to be long, but anyways, what interim state, or where are they, or what are they in between the day they die and the day of judgment?
We are made according to Islam, and
Yeah.
or even according to Christianity and Judaism, from body and soul.
Right.
When we die, a lot of people think this is the end. No, it is not the end. It's just moving to another stage. Think of it as when you are born.
Mhm.
You were nothing before you were conceived.
Right.
Nothing. Who knows which sperm from where is going to come and create Muhammad or John or
Right.
anybody. Then through the gate of birth,
Yeah.
we come from that world,
Yeah.
from nothingness to this existing world. And through the gate of death, when our body stops functioning, but our soul is taken from the body. And it's going to be in a place we call it Barzakh.
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 Exactly. You'll find you're doing it right.
What does that mean, that word?
It's a place, it's like a transition
Okay.
area between there and the world of the next.
Kind of a waiting room.
Waiting
for the-
room.
For the soul.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. Waiting place for the souls.
Is a person conscious or,
The soul is conscious, probably, but the person,
body-
the body's gone.
well, the
I
body's
mean, after
here.
10, 15 years, 20 years,
Not even.
you're
Yeah.
nothing but dirt and dust. And that's if you are put in a grave, if you are
Right.
burned or you are eaten by an animal or
Yeah.
drowned in the sea.
Yeah.
But at the end of the world, when the world ends,
Mm-hmm.
every human, every living thing will
Will.
die
And,
at the end of the world. Then comes the day of judgment when everything will be resurrected.
okay, so there's
God
a
will-
resurrection of
There
all
is a
living
resurrection
things.
of everything.
And then what happens?
Then the judgment starts. And the judge is God himself.
Okay, and what does he judge us by?
Okay. Now, in order to qualify, here's another concept. You should, you have to understand before you understand what qualifies you
Okay,
after this world,
yeah,
to whatever waiting for you.
yeah.
This life is nothing but a test period for those who lives it.
It's one
Live it.
long exam.
No, it is easy, honest to God, it's easy. And
And there is no curve.
you come to this world, you were given a chance to live and to hear the message of God. Maybe you hear it, maybe you don't. And if you accept it and you surrender to your will for God, this is the first qualification. This is not, okay, you're done, go to heaven. No.
Okay,
You have to believe in God
okay.
and you have to do righteousness,
Which are
which are anything good.
any acts for others?
Any acts for yourself and for others that will bring good.
Okay,
Okay? You don't harm people.
right.
You don't do abomination and you don't break the commandments
Okay.
as we know them.
But everyone does, so.
Everyone does, exactly. Now, if you're a
Nobody-
believer,
Whether you have any, whatever ethical principles you have, you violate them. You know,
Absolutely.
every human being breaks their own moral
absolutely.
codes.
The
So
only-
whether you believe in an external one, like Mohamed or me, or not, even the ones that you say, this is how I want to live, you don't always do that. So what happens when you've got good things and you've got bad things,
See, this is great.
and then you're facing judgment?
There is no concept in Islam of somebody will pay for your mistakes.
So there's nobody there, whereas in
Salvation is
Christianity,
your job.
Christianity has Jesus as the substitute. In Islam, it's you're responsible
It
for the
is
good and the
your
bad.
responsibility.
Okay.
If you don't believe in Jesus, you're not a Muslim. Okay?
Correct, but Jesus is not the,
Jesus is not God.
like,
in
and
Islam.
he's not divine
He's not divine at all.
at all.
He's a
And he is
human being just
not-
like every human
He is
being.
not the substitute that takes care of someone's
Correct.
bad things in life.
Yeah. The
Okay.
thing is, we don't have the original sin either. We don't believe in it.
So, which was, I think, another slide. We're born al-fitra?
Fitra
Al-fitra, which
is
is
a pure nature.
pure nature. So in
Yes.
Islam, though Adam and Eve left the garden,
Correct.
there is, they were totally capable of following God's
They
law.
repented and
correct.
followed. Exactly.
So in Islam, there's no understanding of a moral inherent deficit in a human being
Correct.
that leads you as a propensity to do bad things. Or
Correct.
do you call them sins? Or
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
We call them sin.
So you've got this. You've got
What-
good things. You've got bad things. You're standing before God in the judgment. Then what?
Haha. Now, if you are a believer
Mm-hmm.
and you have bad things and good things, the weight of the bad things against the good things will determine which way you go. But regardless, you are at the mercy of God.
So
100%. Even if you did everything is good, you may end up going to the hellfire.
So so that's kind of this understanding of sort of divine decree or predestination in the sense that it is up to God to decide your fate, even if you've done a lot of good things in life compared to the bad things in life. God gets to decide. You don't get to tell him how to make the judgment.
And some people will argue, by the way.
Well, they can argue all they want, but God is God, right? Is what you would say.
Some will argue with God on the day of, God, he'll show them what they did. And the motive, because the motive plays.
So if you do, so Mohammed, I'm going to be honest with you. I can't think of one thing in my life I've done for the right motive, for purely the right motives. I've always got mixed motives. I've always got egotism, right?
Most human beings.
So for me, on this side of the equation, on the good stuff, I can't even find a good deed that I've done for the right reason, at the right time, in the right amount, without thinking about myself.
Let me give you an example.
Okay?
How about that?
So I end up with everything over on this side.
Okay.
And that's why, as far as, anyways, but.
Let me give you an example. The most gross sin after disbelieving or associating
blasphemy against God, yeah.
Blasphemy against God is killing
another human being.
Okay. Now, you might kill somebody who's coming to kill you.
So it's like self-defense.
Self-defense.
That's different, correct?
That's different.
Okay.
You might kill somebody because you hated him. You're going to be responsible for that.
Okay.
God knows exactly.
Well, he knows everything that's going on, so I can't hide anything from him. That's what Islam would say, right? Because God is God.
Yeah. Some people help people killing other people by giving them the okay.
Aiding and abetting, encouraging.
Anything. Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Or even motivating them to do that.
So,
they are as responsible.
So this might, I do want to get to at least the 5 pillars of Islam, which you can kind of go off on as well. But this, when you came to class a couple times, this area starts to open up some of the myths that need to be busted on Islam.
Yes.
That is from, this understanding that Muslims are able to kill others in the name of God. And do you know what I mean? And that Muslims are terrorists inherently, or Islam is a religion of violence.
Unfortunately, it is a big misconception. Absolutely.
And so why don't you share, because I'd say for 5 or 6 minutes at least, some of the basic myths that you would like to say, look beyond the vast majority of Muslims in this world are nowhere near this insignificant, and we hate these individuals as well. They are an aberration to the faith. Is that correct?
Absolutely. In fact, Muslims are the victims of...
Often they're victims of other
Muslims
in name,
exactly.
Right? More Muslims are killed by
misguided Muslims, let's call them at least.
Which they're more about power and control issues.
And some of them, they do it out of belief. Believe it or not, we have to admit that. I mean, some of them, they believe that their duty.
To kill anyone who is not pure enough.
Who does not pure enough or don't agree with them.
Yeah.
Okay.
So somehow the teaching of Jesus, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, it might be in Islam, but they don't.
They dismiss it.
They dismiss that and say, no,
correct.
This is how you treat your enemies.
Yeah. Let me start again. The grossest sin is associating with God or denying the existence of God. Next to it comes killing a human being. Nobody has the right to kill anybody without a just cause. And the just cause always in the hands of the leadership, not in the hands of people. That's number one. And whoever does that, the warning is in the Quran. Eternal hellfire.
Okay, so that's pretty well heavily weighted on this side of the bad things.
This is it.
You hardly a chance ever
you
could ever
exactly
repay or atone for that.
You can give $10 trillion in charity.
And it will not make up
1 million
for
churches and mosques and synagogues and hospitals and this and that, and do whatever you can do. Killing one soul will nullify all of that.
Wow.
How about that?
Okay.
The Quran is very clear. Whoever kills one soul without a just cause, as if he killed all of humanity.
Okay.
Humanity from Adam till the day of judgment.
Wow.
Imagine killing that many. And whoever saves one, somebody is drowning, somebody who's being about to be killed, somebody who's suffering, a doctor who saves the lives of those people who are dying too are considered in this as if he saves all of humanity.
So I should have become a doctor, I guess.
Well, that's great, but you are a doctor of souls.
Well, maybe.
If you can save souls, that's even much better. Okay? Not physically. So, when it comes to this, then the Quran is extremely clear. La ikraha fi din. We explained what Islam is, to come to the submission of God, totally on your own terms and will. No influence whatsoever. It won't be accepted.
Right.
So God says clearly, no compulsion in religion. You cannot force anybody to be a believer. It doesn't make sense. I can put a gun to your head and you tell me I'm a Muslim. That doesn't make you a Muslim.
Right.
And God knows.
Right. But it's been done in the name of God in many religions.
And in every religion, actually.
Okay.
And it's being done today as we speak. It is happening.
And
so
you look at a different Arab or Muslim countries, or, because they range from, Indonesia, India,
every
country, but there are some that are predominantly
correct.
Muslim, like Indonesia, not necessarily Arab,
Correct.
right? And there are some that are in pretty good shape and pretty humane, and others the government is corrupt.
It's a
But
chaos.
It's chaotic.
And
But that has not, in some ways, it's not Islam that has brought about.
no, absolutely, it has nothing to do with Islam whatsoever. This is another misconception.
Misconception, yeah.
People think Muslim countries are governed by Muslim governments. None, and I'm saying none, of the Muslim countries are governed by true Muslim people. You have politicians and power-hungry people who are in charge.
And dynasties and sheikhs.
My personal belief, there is no Islamic state.
So
There
that
shouldn't be.
okay.
And that's what most Muslims believe.
Would like to see, but boy.
Faith is virtues and values and doctrine to regulate your relation with God. Government is a human activity of human nature.
Right.
And it is up to us how we govern ourselves. And nobody's allowed to impose his beliefs on us.
And I think sometimes the United States in certain parts of the world is looked at as a Christian nation.
Correct.
In terms of, and so whatever happens in Hollywood or in Madison Avenue or on Wall Street or any of the celebrities or any of the politicians, that's what Christians do, and yet that's
unfortunately, it is a misconception.
It's a misconception.
I lived it myself.
Correct.
I learned it myself. I thought of it myself when I was back in Syria. That's
right. So we tend to stereotype or lump all this together for Islamic
Generalize.
countries or for almost any country.
Correct.
It's like, well, they're this, and then boom. So
I
there's
mean, for
stereotypes.
example, let's take Saudi Arabia.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Everybody thinks this is the heart of Islam, and the government is
Well, they're
a
wealthy.
Muslim government.
It's
Unfortunately, the most corrupted, wealthiest family in control of a country in the whole world. And the truth is, 99% of the Muslim world don't respect the government of Saudi Arabia because they have nothing truly Islamic about them. It's just they are in control. And they allowed some Muslims, radical Muslims, to play and have a little authority in certain areas.
So, and I think you're talking about the Wahhabi kind of
The Wahhabi-
Wahhabi sect.
Not all Wahhabis, by the way. There are wonderful Wahhabis.
Okay.
I mean,
But
just
some
to be
have,
fair.
are
And
extremely.
there are some extremely radicals,
Right.
rigid, narrow-minded, tunnel visions, Wahhabis.
Yeah.
And there are the same tunnel visions, radical Sufis and Shi'is, and just like you have it in every
Yeah.
I mean, look at Christianity. The
Yeah.
KKKs claim they are Christians.
Yeah.
And they carry the cross in their activities and this.
Right. Right.
And
Nobody,
I don't think any Christian will approve.
No, nobody in
Of their claim.
Christianity looks at the KKK and thinks they're Christian.
Exactly.
But
However, to the
The
outside
world-
world, exactly,
Sometimes.
the people who don't know. Same thing with the Muslim world. You look at it
right.
from this perspective.
So we need to have a lot more nuance and a lot more critical reasoning skills when we look at the news or see any story.
Absolutely.
And
Go to the source.
Yeah.
Really, go to the people themselves. Go to the Muslims themselves. Go to the Buddhists themselves, the Hindus themselves.
Yeah.
Don't hear about them.
Right.
Talk to them directly.
Good. We're going to have to, for the sake of students watching these videos, I'm so sorry, Mohammed.
That's absolutely fine.
But I do want to go through some of the basics of practice, let's say. The 5 pillars. Is
Yes,
that okay?
absolutely, yes.
And then anything else you want after that? Because then I.
Absolutely.
But
To be a Muslim,
yes,
you have to
willingly
declare, willingly, absolutely willingly declare that you believe in the oneness of God.
Okay.
Okay?
And
The message of Muhammad.
that Muhammad is the messenger of God.
That's as a, that will take you to become a believer of Muhammad's message. To be a Muslim, really, according to my understanding, believing in God and believing in the day of judgment and doing righteousness will put you in God's categories of Muslims.
Okay.
Muslims, as we traditionally now got to know it, is this 1.7 billion people who believe in Muhammad, have to practice, in addition to that belief, certain practices,
Okay.
just like in any association.
So these are more
One of them is the salah, the
salat,
prayer.
which is prayer.
It's ritualistic
5
worship.
times.
5
Okay.
times minimum a day.
Okay.
You can volunteer more than
More
the 5, but the 5 are mandatory.
Are they? How long are the prayers usually?
Up to the individual and how much time he has.
Are
It
there?
could be 5 minutes, it could be an hour. And the Prophet used to pray half of the night, in addition to the 5 prayers. Then you have the zakat,
Zakat,
the
which
alms
is
giving, which is mandatory also.
And what percentage? About.
Okay,
Taking
if
this-
you have saving or tangible assets, 2.5% of your net worth, not your income.
Okay.
Let's say I make 100,000, for
Yes.
example, but my net worth is 100 million. I pay on the 100 millions,
Okay.
2.5% minimum.
Most people don't have a lot of net worth in America. Middle class people tend to have a lot of just income, but not necessarily net worth. Because we owe a lot.
Unfortunately, yes.
You know, right? Houses and stuff. So we don't really own the house.
Okay, there are, just like in the tax system,
Right.
I'm glad you brought this.
Yeah.
Just like there are exemptions in the tax system that, by the way, if you study the American Constitution
Yeah.
and the nice virtual laws,
Yeah.
American practice, Islamic and godly 100%. You have to pay taxes, but there is an exemption.
Yeah.
You don't pay on your house. In Islam, you won't.
Okay.
You have jewelry, a lot, maybe $10 million worth of
You don't
diamonds
pay
and
on
gold. You don't pay
jewelry?
on it. You have your car, a Lamborghini, a Mercedes,
Yeah.
a Rolls. You don't pay on it.
Really?
Yeah, you pay on the extras,
Ah.
aside of the exceptions, that you accumulate and you keep for a whole year. Let's say I
So
have
like
$1 million.
stuff in the bank, your stocks and bonds.
If $1, there is a minimum, the weight of, the equal of 85 grams of gold. If you have that much, now you start paying.
Okay.
Below that, you don't pay.
You don't pay.
But it has to be in your possession for a whole year.
Okay.
If you spend it 10 days before, you don't have to pay on it.
Okay.
This is
That's
really
one way to get out
interesting.
of it.
Really
It
interesting.
is interesting.
And the alms cannot go to build churches. No,
They
it has
go
to
to
go to the needies,
To
who
the
deserve it,
poor, the sick.
the orphans,
Okay.
the
Great.
people who are seeking.
Psalm?
Students even are qualified. for
Right.
that.
Is the fast during Ramadan?
You have to fast at least
From sunrise to sunset.
for 30 consecutive days a year. in the month of Ramadan.
Which shifts,
It shifts.
because it's a lunar
Lunar
calendar.
calendar.
Does it shift, like, it shifts between what, sometimes it's like in the middle of summer where in the
Correct.
northern hemisphere we have lots of daylight,
Mhm.
which can get kind of tough.
Right. where you have 22 hours of daylight. So and at that point,
That's where
people
you-
don't have to fast
Oh,
22
okay.
hours.
What you do is you drive, or you fly somewhere else for the month.
If you can, that would be a good. There is a loophole there, yes. But if you can't, you fast according to the closest place or close place that where the sun sets
Reasonable.
and there is a reasonable amount of
Okay.
night time.
And then the Hajj is
The Hajj, the
once in a
pilgrimage,
lifetime.
and speaking of that, it is happening as we speak
But
now.
it isn't. Because of COVID, I
Well,
think
no,
cut
it is
back
open to the people within Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, but
They
that's
didn't
about it.
accept people from
from
anywhere.
outside, because
Yes.
usually millions of people
Correct. 4-5 million
a year.
people a year gather
So
together. for
it's a
that
once in a
ritual.
lifetime requirement, minimum, but only if you've got the funds to do it, and only if you don't have.
Healthy, you're capable.
Right.
Yes.
Great.
So those are the pillars of ritualistic things in Islam.
Okay, we
But-
talked about most of these, and
You wanted to talk a little bit about
just a little so that they
the sects
understand.
and
Yeah, so the main version of Islam is sometimes, for Westerners, I don't know if that is called Sunni.
Sunni.
It's
Yeah.
the majority in the world. It's like, I don't know, 80%, I think, ish.
About.
Shia is about 10-15%.
Correct.
It's mainly Iran and a few others.
Several other, they exist in many countries actually, but mainly Iran, yes,
Okay.
and Iraq.
Okay.
Let's start by explaining what is Sunni and what is Shia.
Yeah.
Sunni, Methodist. Let me ask you this. What did Methodist, the word came from?
From method.
From method.
And Sunni is the method or the following.
It came, the Sunni came from Sunnah. Sunnah is a method. Sunni is the methodology of the Prophet.
Right. So they follow the teachings and the method of the Prophet.
Exactly.
Shia follows the bloodline, in a sense.
All right. Here,
Correct.
Sunnis and Shia, they follow the Sunnah of the Prophet. The difference here, Shia means the allies. They allied themselves with the cousin and the son-in-law of the
nephew
Prophet. The son-in-law
son-in-law of the
of
Prophet.
the Prophet and his
Because
descendants.
they believed he should have been the next caliph.
Correct. They believe that's where the authority should have gone
When
after the
Muhammad
death of the Prophet.
When Muhammad died, he did not
He did not assign anyone.
assign anyone to be the leader or the caliph.
Correct.
of-
He left it for the people.
Right. And Abu Bakr,
Came after Muhammad.
and he is what the majority said, okay, he's the leader.
They agreed on him.
And
Exactly.
the Shia from that time on said, no, it should have been someone
Not
who's,
actually them, no.
but later on.
Later on, the cousin and the son-in-law of the Prophet was chosen to be the leader.
Okay.
However, there was a rebellion against him and he was killed. And then the issue became a kingdom. It is not a khilafah anymore. And the Shia allied themselves, no, we need to go to that way and keep it in the bloodline of the
Okay.
Prophet.
Okay.
They have the same belief, they have the same book, they pray the same way. No difference when it comes to
But
the
there are,
religion.
but
Politically,
politically, there's been
yes.
a lot of tension. And then Sufism is more of a mystical version. Would you
The
say?
charismatic, let's put it.
Charismatic.
Charismatic.
If you would say within Christianity, it's the charismatics. Within Islam, it's
The
the
Sufis.
Sufis.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's
the
the
metaphor.
best way
Okay.
to.
And Wahhabism, I just brought up because
Okay.
it has had some influence from Saudi Arabia in the kind of stricter or more radical versions that get
Wahhabism
established elsewhere. at
started
times.
with someone named Mohammed ibn Abdul Wahhab. Muhammad, the son of Abdul Wahhab. That's where Wahhabism came. That's like Lutherans came
Okay.
after Martin Luther. We
Yeah.
had this
This
man,
guy,
Abdul
yeah.
Wahhab, came and they called Wahhabism after him. Wahhabism came started as a reform movement. people after hundreds of years, they deviate. A lot of ignorance happens. And the societies did not have access to information and materials to keep up with their religion. So a lot of corruptions came to the religion. They started as a reform movement,
But
then they became harsh and violent in doing it. Then they teamed up with the Saudi family, that government
kind of made
agreement.
an agreement
We'll support you to
As-
be kings,
as long as you
support
give
us to do
us-
whatever we want to do religiously. So it became the church and the state.
and it got
Had a
involved.
marriage back then, and the marriage is going very bad right now. They are going through a tough period. And that's where they started. And they tend to be very rigid and very strict, and sometimes obnoxious. Not all of them.
Mhm.
The majority are good. They are
Right.
trying to go back to the original sunnah, follow the Prophet exactly. But unfortunately, there's a big group, influential, that got their ways and give Wahhabism a bad name.
Mohammed, this has been great, but I would like to, and I think you've already said you'd be willing to do, students in this class, like I brought up a number of times, you need to do some type of a field trip. Now, this can be virtual now because of COVID-19, but you can also, I think, potentially set up a time where you could sit with Mohammed in a physically distanced space
Absolutely.
and learn from him a bit and have a dialogue with him and record that as your field trip experience and reflect on that. You could also possibly do it online if you're willing to share like your email and stuff.
Absolutely,
And then
yes.
and they can contact you. It is your responsibility to contact him. He's not going to contact you, but you contact him and set up a time to do these things. You could do them in a group of students. You don't have to be alone to do
Correct.
this. In fact, for his sake, it might be helpful to have 5 or 6 of you do it rather than one, because I don't want to take up all of his time. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Everybody's welcome. You are welcome. Your family members, your friends, if you want to ask them to come.
Yeah,
And
people
if
outside
anybody
of
has
this
any
class can
questions,
join in if you
Our
want.
door has been open for many years, and hundreds really came through the door to have these discussions with us, and you are absolutely welcome. We'll be as accommodating and generous as we can with you. And if you have a question, you would like also an answer for it through the phone or through an email, you're welcome to do that. I'll provide you with
Thank
all
you
the
so
contact
much.
information so you can share it with everybody. And
Yeah.
I look forward, honestly, for your calls.
We just scratched the surface here, but it was a great dialogue. What I think I'm hoping these things do too is it kind of models how you can have a religious dialogue, just seeking to understand somebody else's faith, learning from it, and not having to have a, confrontational,
Well,
stereotype, negative, us,
I
them
hope one
mentality.
day, I hope, honest to God, and I pray one day where we can sit down and I'll share my own personal experience. Mohammed that you're talking to
Yeah.
today is so different from the young boy, Mohammed, different from the young man,
You've
different
grown,
from the
yeah.
imam when I became an imam here
Yeah.
about 20 years ago, and different from the one you're talking
Great.
to 10
That
years
sounds
ago.
like a
I
great-
had many epiphanies, many changes, and if you are not changing, really,
If you're not growing, yeah. So, thank you so much, Mohammed.
I do appreciate it.
Thank you for your
so much,
time.
Sean, and I look forward to
Yes.
meeting with you again and have more
So,
dialogue
salam.
and conversation.
God's peace.
Assalamu alaikum. May peace be with you.
Yes, and to you too.
Thank you.